My name is Eleanor Wright, and I turned 62 last summer. I used to think that getting older meant growing invisible, like life slowly turned the volume down on you until one day, no one could hear you anymore. But I was wrong. Sometimes the world doesn't just ignore you, it laughs in your face. And it only took one dinner, one comment, one moment to crack the world I had built for decades. We were at my son's house, a modest two-story in the suburbs. His wife, Melissa, had just plated some overpriced takeout and called it dinner. I didn't mind. I wasn't there for the food. I was just happy to be invited. My son, David, had a way of making me feel like a guest in the life I used to run. That night, it was me, David, Melissa, and my ex-husband, Greg, who still showed up to family events like he hadn't left me for a woman 10 years younger. They said it was for the kids. I said nothing. Melissa was talking about opening her boutique again, some luxury candle shop downtown with Himalayan salt and glass jars that cost more than my monthly heating bill. Greg was all praise, of course. You've got drive, he told her. That's what makes the difference. That's why Melissa's still got potential even in her 40s. I smiled politely, chewing on cold noodles, and then David turned to Greg and said something that would echo in my head for days, weeks, maybe forever. Well, what can a woman over 50 really do anyway? They laughed. I didn't. I couldn't. I looked at him, at my son, the boy I carried for 9 months, who once held my hand through nightmares and begged me not to leave the room when he was sick. Now, he looked at me like a relic, a piece of dusty furniture someone kept out of guilt. I blinked, my lips pressed together so tight they trembled. Melissa didn't say anything. Greg smirked, not even trying to hide it. I excused myself to the bathroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the tub. I stared at the tile for 10 minutes, blinking hard, trying to steady my breath. No one came to check on me. No one knocked. On the drive home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone to vent. I sat in silence with my hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel like I had for decades, controlled, quiet, safe. That night, I opened the medicine cabinet and stared at my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked tired. Her gray roots had crept down further than she remembered. Her blouse, once her favorite, now clung awkwardly around her waist. But her eyes weren't dead yet. They were just waiting. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop waiting. Because the next morning I woke up, brewed a cup of coffee, and opened my laptop. I didn't know what I was looking for. Only that I was done letting the world tell me I was finished. Done letting my age define my worth. And done with the silence. They said, "What can a woman over 50 do?" Let me show them. The thing they never tell you about betrayal is how quiet it is. There's no thunderclap. No dramatic violin swell. Just the steady silence that settles into your bones, slow and cold. I woke up the morning after that dinner with a strange stillness in my chest. Like something had frozen there overnight. I made my usual tea, sat by the window, and watched the mailman pass by without even a glance. The same routine I had followed for years, except now everything felt different. Like I was sitting inside my own life as a visitor. The house was clean, too clean. No muddy shoes in the hallway. No backpacks tossed carelessly on the floor. No one calling out, "Mom, have you seen my keys?" just before running out the door. Those sounds used to drive me mad. Now I would have given anything to hear them again. The walls echoed with the absence of chaos. But it wasn't peace. It was abandonment with good lighting. I thought of calling someone, maybe my sister in Arizona, maybe Ruth from the church knitting group, but I didn't want to hear the pity in their voices. I didn't want another, "I'm so sorry that happened." What I wanted was to not be so damn forgettable. For decades, I was the glue, the invisible thread holding everyone else's life together. I packed lunches. I clipped coupons. I remembered birthdays, booked dentist appointments, stayed up all night sewing Halloween costumes from scratch. And for what? So I could be reduced to a punchline about postmenopausal irrelevance over takeout noodles? I tried to journal, something I hadn't done since high school. The first sentence came out shaky. "I think I'm disappearing." I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I crossed them out. No, not disappearing. Being erased. There's a difference. And if someone is trying to erase you, you have two choices: fade out or fight back. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, not the cheap box kind, but the good bottle I had been saving for God knows what. I turned on the jazz station and let Ella Fitzgerald fill the room. I danced. Just a little. Just enough to remember I had a body that still moved. Still felt. Still wanted. I had no plan. No brilliant business idea. No roadmap to redemption. Just a flicker. A whisper in the back of my mind saying, "You are not done." And that whisper grew louder with every passing day. I started walking in the mornings past old shops, past young women in leggings sipping oat milk lattes, past closed doors and neon signs. I noticed a small storefront with paper covering the windows and a faded "For Lease" sign hanging crookedly. The name on the mailbox read, "Windsor Wellness Spa, closed." I stopped and stared at it longer than I meant to. The paint was peeling. The awning sagged. But something about it called to me, like it had been waiting for someone not too young, not too flashy, just steady. I didn't know it yet, but that building was about to change everything. I walked away that day, but my mind stayed glued to it. That night, I opened my laptop again. This time, I searched for small business loans, for grants for women over 50, for courses in entrepreneurship. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. This was mine. A quiet storm was beginning to brew beneath my skin, and they had no idea what was coming. The letter came on a Wednesday. Thin envelope, cheap paper, just my name typed in bold letters, no return address. I almost threw it away. Bills, junk, the usual reminders that the world didn't care who you used to be. But I opened it anyway. Notice of termination of lease. My landlord had decided to sell the building. I had 30 days to vacate. 30. I sat on the edge of the couch holding that piece of paper like it was a loaded gun. I had lived in that apartment for 22 years, raised my children there, watched my marriage die there, learned to breathe again in the silence that followed. It was small, yes. Outdated, yes. But it was mine, and now even that was being taken. I folded the letter slowly, deliberately, like it might disappear if I was gentle enough. Then I stood up, walked to the tiny kitchen, and made tea with shaking hands. I stared at the kettle like it might offer answers. All it did was scream. That night, I packed a single box. Just one. The photo of me and David when he graduated high school. The locket Greg gave me on our 10th anniversary, before he started cheating. The hand-stitched table runner I made the year we couldn't afford gifts. I ran my fingers along each item, not ready to say goodbye, but knowing I had no choice. The next day, I tried calling David. No answer. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. I didn't bother with a third. What was I expecting? Sympathy? A spare room? I knew better. I had outlived my usefulness to them. My phone stayed silent for 2 days. Then, on Saturday, Melissa texted, "Hope you're okay. Let us know if you need anything." Empty words. Digital guilt. I didn't respond. I didn't need anything from them anymore. The eviction turned out to be a strange kind of gift. A push. A dare. The world had slammed one more door in my face, but this time, I wasn't going to knock. I was going to build my own damn door. I went back to the boarded-up spa on Main Street. It looked even sadder in daylight. Forgotten. Dusty. But I saw past it. I saw candles flickering in frosted glass. Soft music coming through the walls. Women my age, older even, wrapped in robes, sipping tea, exhaling years of holding it all in. I saw me. I didn't have the money. Not yet. I didn't have the license. I didn't have a partner or a business plan or even a clear idea of what services I'd offer. But I had something no one could take. Fire. I walked around the back of the building and peeked through a broken pane. It smelled like mold and old lavender. And still I smiled. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for permission. I was ready to start breaking my own ground. I didn't plan to find the letter. It was buried under years of dust and neglect in a box I hadn't opened since Greg left. I was digging through the closet for old bank statements, trying to see if I had anything I could leverage to make this spa dream real. That's when I found it. A small manila envelope, yellowed at the edges, sealed tight. My name was written in faded ink. Eleanor Wright. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Aunt Viola, dead almost 15 years, God rest her fierce soul. She had no children of her own, no husband after 40, and no patience for anyone who told her what a woman could or couldn't do. She was the first woman I ever saw stand in the middle of a room full of men and not flinch. The last time I saw her, she hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe and whispered, "You are more than they ever let you be." I never knew what she meant. Until now. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a letter, thick with age but the ink still sharp. "If you're reading this, Ellie, then the world must have pushed you too far." Good. That means you're ready. I choked on a laugh. She always did know me too well. The letter went on, detailing something I had completely forgotten. Years ago, Aunt Viola had invested in a small piece of commercial property out in the hill country. One she never used, just kept paying the taxes on. It wasn't worth much back then. Just a rundown old general store on the edge of a growing town. "It's yours," she wrote. "Always was. Signed it over to you when you turned 50. Just didn't tell you. Figured you'd come looking when you needed it. Like now." I sat on the floor in shock. My heart was beating so fast it made me dizzy. I fumbled for my reading glasses, grabbed my laptop, and typed in the county records site. And there it was. My name. On a deed. Eleanor Wright, owner of 217 Hollow Oak Drive. Assessed value, $248,000. I stared at the screen, the numbers blurring with the tears in my eyes. For so long, I had believed I had nothing. No leverage. No future. Just a pile of worn memories. And a body the world called useless. But Viola, God bless that woman, had given me something else. A chance. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't poor. I wasn't finished. I was just beginning. The next morning, I drove out to the address. The building was exactly as she described, weathered wood, faded green shutters, overgrown grass curling up around the porch. But solid. Standing. Waiting. The door creaked when I opened it, like it remembered her and was now meeting me for the first time. The smell of old cedar and dust filled my lungs. I coughed then laughed. This would take work. But I had time. I had vision. I had anger that had aged into ambition. I ran my hand across the dusty counter and whispered, "Let's get to work." I spent the next week making calls, researching grants, watching endless videos on renovating old buildings. I started a binder. I made lists. I reached out to the city office about zoning. Every time I hit a wall, I thought of that dinner table, of my son's laughter, of Greg's smirk, of Melissa's silence. And I kept going, because this time I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for me, and for every woman who'd been told she was too old to matter, too late to begin, too far gone to rise. Let them think we're invisible. Let them laugh. We're not done. We're just warming up. There's something terrifying and exhilarating about walking into a lawyer's office after 60. You feel like a child pretending to be an adult, clutching papers and questions and fears like they might explode in your hands. But I walked in anyway. The office smelled like wood polish and air conditioning, the kind that makes your skin feel tight. The receptionist gave me a once-over, the look young people reserve for the elderly when they think we're confused, lost, or about to ask for the bathroom. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked without looking up. "Yes," I said, voice steady. "Eleanor Wright. Property transfer consultation." She blinked. "Oh, okay. One moment." 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from a man named James Patel, who looked like he could have been in middle school when I was raising toddlers. He was polite, sharp, curious, asked all the right questions. I handed him Viola's letter, the deed, the printed records. He studied them quietly, then looked up at me with something almost like respect. "Well, Mrs. Wright," he said, "looks like you own this property free and clear. No liens, no disputes. It's a clean title. You've got options. Options. God, when was the last time someone said that to me? I had lived half a century in a house full of obligations, rules, expectations, but never options. Now, with one old building and one woman's faith in me from beyond the grave, I had possibilities. I met with a banker next. A woman named Carla, mid-40s, nails perfectly manicured, eyes sharp. She reviewed the property value, the zoning, my credit history. Have you considered turning it into a commercial venture? She asked. Yes, I said, heart pounding. A spa. Her eyebrows lifted. Spa? That's not usual. Neither am I answered. Something in her face shifted then. She leaned in, clicked her pen, and asked, tell me what kind. I had no presentation, no pitch deck, just a fire that had survived years of silence. I told her about my vision, a wellness retreat for women over 50. No mirrors, no Botox, no green juice promises. Just warmth, quiet, healing, a place to feel seen. When I finished, she said nothing, just tapped her pen against her notepad. Then she nodded slowly. It's bold, she said, but it's needed. I walked out of that bank with a pre-approval letter and a purpose. The next week's blurred. I filed for an LLC, Wright Revival. I bought business cards. I signed forms. I created a website using a YouTube tutorial and way too many cups of coffee. Every small act felt like defiance. Every email sent felt like a door kicked open. I had never seen my name printed professionally before. But now there it was. Owner, founder, director, Eleanor Wright. My name. Mine. And as I stapled one more application for a small business grant and filed another order for a refurbished massage table, something hit me. All those years of being Greg's wife, David's mom, the lady from Unit 3B, they were gone. I wasn't an extra anymore. I wasn't someone's background. I was center stage. And even if no one clapped yet, even if no one came, this moment, this becoming was real. I reclaimed my name that month. Not just legally, not just on paper, but in my own soul. And the woman I saw in the mirror, she was someone I hadn't met in years. Fierce, focused, and finally free. The first time I told someone I was opening a spa, they laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly, just that condescending chuckle people give when they think you've confused ambition with delusion. It was a neighbor, Janet, who lived across the hall and always smelled vaguely of potpourri and gossip. A spa, she repeated, eyebrows high. At your age? I smiled, slow and calm. Exactly. She blinked, nodded like she was humoring me, and went back to watering her succulents. It was the first of many times I would hear that question. At the hardware store, when I asked about eco-friendly floor sealant. At the city office, when I filed renovation permits. Even from the contractor I hired, a man named Dean with a beer belly, sun-worn skin, and a tone that said, ma'am, like a curse. It's not too late to rent this out, you know, he said while inspecting the cracked pipes. Just saying. It's a lot of work. I looked him in the eye and replied, I've done harder things. Try surviving childbirth in 82 with no epidural and a cheating husband. He shut up after that. The building was a mess. Mold in the corners. Wiring from the 70s. A family of raccoons living in the attic. But I saw through the decay. I saw lavender walls. Warm lighting. The soft hum of instrumental piano music. Shelves lined with herbal oils. A quiet sanctuary for women like me who had spent decades pouring into everyone else, finally being poured into. I spent every penny carefully. No wasted grandeur. Just what mattered. I learned how to read blueprints. How to negotiate contractor schedules. How to choose paint that didn't scream trendy but whispered safe. I worked 12-hour days in sweatpants and old sneakers. Hair tied back with a pencil, dust in my lungs and determination in my chest. And slowly, brick by brick, it started to look like something. Not just a building, a place, a dream with walls. I bought a sign, the Revival Spa, elegant script on pale blue wood. Underneath, in smaller letters, for women who remember who they are. I cried when it went up. Quiet tears, the kind that come from deep, old places. When it was finally time to open, I expected no one. I told myself I was okay with that. That I'd built this for myself, and if others came, it would be a bonus. But they came. 3 women on opening day. Then 6. Then 10. All of them over 50. All of them hesitant, nervous, curious. One by one, they walked through the doors and exhaled like they hadn't in years. Do we have to undress? One asked. No, I said. You only take off what no longer serves you. She smiled through tears. I hired a massage therapist named Carla, 63, recently divorced. A yoga instructor named Maylin, 59, who used to teach high school and could outstretch women half her age. And a receptionist named June, 71, who had retired twice and hated bingo. I want purpose, she told me, not puzzles. We wore soft uniforms in muted tones. We served tea before every session. We remembered names. We let women be soft and loud and tired and powerful all at once. It wasn't just a spa. It was sanctuary, community, a rebellion with eucalyptus oil and heated stones. Word spread. Slowly, then all at once. Local blogs picked us up. One customer posted a photo of our cozy fireplace reading nook with the caption, "I didn't know I needed this until now." And suddenly we were booked 2 weeks out. People said I was lucky, that I'd hit a niche, that I had timed the market. But I knew the truth. I wasn't lucky. I was ready for the world to see women like us not as relics, but as revolutions. They said, "What can a woman over 50 do?" I built a space that made them whisper in awe. And that was just the beginning. I didn't expect Greg to walk through the spa doors. Not after all these years. Not after everything. But there he was, same smug face, just a little softer now, with a hairline retreating like his courage. He wasn't there for a massage. No, of course not. Men like Greg didn't believe in self-care, unless it involved a golf course or a younger woman stroking their ego. He was there because he had seen an ad. My ad. "Is this your place?" he asked, glancing around like he was stepping into a foreign country. The Revival Spa. I kept my tone calm, neutral. Yes. He gave a short laugh, a little too loud, a little too nervous. "Didn't think you had it in you." And there it was, the jab dressed as a joke. That old familiar blade. I could have smiled and nodded, played gracious. But something in me refused to shrink again. "I didn't either," I said. "Until I stopped asking men like you what I was capable of." He blinked. For the first time, he had no quick comeback. Just silence. Delicious, unfamiliar silence. He left after 5 minutes, mumbling something about just checking it out. But that wasn't the end of it. A week later, David called. "Dad says you opened some spa." His tone was laced with skepticism, like I had declared I was joining the circus. "Yes," I said simply. "It's doing well." A pause. Then, "Are you okay?" That word again. Okay. As if being okay was the goal. As if thriving was too much to ask. "I'm better than okay, David. I'm free." Melissa chimed in 2 days later. Sent a text with a link to an article about my spa's growing popularity. "Wow. Didn't know you were serious about this." Smiley face emoji. That passive-aggressive punctuation mark of modern betrayal. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I was done performing gratitude for people who only applauded once success was undeniable. It was strange. As the spa thrived, so did the noise. People who had dismissed me suddenly remembered my name. Women I hadn't spoken to in years wanted to catch up over coffee. Even Janet across the hall stopped me to ask if I might need some extra help with bookings. I smiled, politely, carefully, like someone who had learned the hard way that not every handshake is kindness. But not everyone doubted me. One afternoon, a young woman named Lena walked in. Maybe 27, maybe 30. Nervous, quiet, eyes like mine when I was her age. Tired but still searching. She booked a massage, then sat with me in the tea corner and said, "I want to work here. I don't care if it's just folding towels. I need to be around this." I hired her on the spot. She reminded me of the woman I once was before marriage, before children, before the years of dimming myself for everyone else's comfort. Lena asked me once, "How did you do it?" "Start this." And I told her the truth. I stopped listening to people who stopped seeing me. The mirror in my office is old, slightly cracked at the edge, gold-framed and heavy. I used to avoid looking in it. Too many lines, too many reminders of time past. But lately I look. I study. I see strength in every wrinkle, wisdom in every gray strand. I see the enemy who was once me, the woman who believed her best years were behind her. And I forgive her. Because she didn't know. She hadn't yet learned that the world doesn't give you permission. You take it. With quiet hands. With calm defiance. With a name written in gold on a door no one expected you to own. The morning of the grand opening, I woke up before the sun. I stood by the window of my new apartment, tea in hand, watching the sky shift from bruised blue to soft peach. I used to think success would feel like fireworks, loud, blinding, impossible to ignore. But it didn't. It felt like peace, like a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for years finally being released. I arrived at the spa before the staff. Everything was ready. Candles lit. Music low. A bowl of fresh lavender at the front desk. The towels perfectly rolled like white swans in woven baskets. June had made lemon scones and laid them out with a handwritten sign. From the heart, not the store. People started arriving at 10 sharp. Women in their 50s, 60s, 70s. Even a few in their 40s who said things like, I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. They came with curiosity, with skepticism, with hope clinging to the corners of their eyes. I greeted every single one with a touch on the arm and the words, welcome home. Because that's what this place had become. Not just for me, but for all of us who had spent decades building lives for others and were finally ready to build something for ourselves. At noon, there was a short ribbon-cutting ceremony. I was supposed to say a few words. I hadn't prepared anything formal. I stood in front of the crowd, my hands wrapped around the satin ribbon, and said, they asked me once, what can a woman over 50 do? I say, watch her. Applause. Real, full-hearted applause. It wrapped around me like sunlight. For the first time in my life, I felt fully seen. Not for what I gave, not for who I used to be, but for who I had become. And then she arrived. Melissa. Hair perfect. Sunglasses too big for the cloudy day. Phone in hand like a shield. Wow, she said, stepping into the lobby. This is a lot nicer than I imagined. I didn't offer tea. I didn't fake a smile. What are you doing here, Melissa? She gave a tight little laugh. David's in the car. He didn't want to come in. But I told him this is huge. We should support you. Support. Now. After ignoring every call. After laughing behind my back. After treating me like a relic. I tilted my head. Why now? She paused. Well, people are talking. You're in the paper. There's even a wait list. There it was. The truth. Not support, status. Not pride, proximity. I nodded. Thanks for stopping by. We're at capacity today. Her smile faded. You're turning us away? No, I said gently. I'm choosing peace. She left without another word. That night, after the last guest had gone and the candles had burned low, I sat in the spa's main lounge and took off my shoes. My feet ached. My back protested. But my soul was dancing. Lena joined me, sitting cross-legged on the floor. You did it, she whispered. I looked around. We did. She grinned. What now? I leaned back against the wall and let out a long, satisfied sigh. Now we keep building. Quietly. Powerfully. One woman at a time. Because success isn't the final chapter. It's just the end of the silence. The first time I saw the numbers, I stared at the screen for 5 full minutes without blinking. I thought there had been a mistake. Some glitch in the accounting software or a miscalculation from the bookkeeper. But it was real. My name. My company. My revenue. 10 times what Greg ever brought home in his best year. I laughed. Not a cruel laugh. Not even a triumphant one. Just quiet, stunned joy. Like someone who had been hungry so long they'd forgotten what full felt like. The revival spa had exploded. We were booked out for months. Women flew in from other states just to spend a weekend in our care. We had been featured in 3 lifestyle magazines. A local news segment called us a sanctuary for the second act. I hired more staff, older women, most of them. Widows, empty nesters, divorcees. All brilliant. All underestimated. They ran the place like they'd been born to. Because in a way they had. We were all living proof that age doesn't dull your light. It just makes you shine smarter. Greg found out, of course. He always kept tabs on me, even when pretending not to care. One day, I got a voicemail from him, tight-voiced, false casual. Just heard about the spa. Impressive, I guess. Crazy how far you've taken this thing. This thing, as if it were a hobby, a phase, like cross-stitching or baking banana bread. I didn't call back. There was nothing left to say. Then came the message from David. Hey, Mom. Melissa and I were talking, and we realized we might have misjudged some things. Maybe we could come by, maybe even invest. I read the text 3 times before deleting it. I didn't need investors. I had income, independence, impact. What I didn't have, what I no longer accepted, was performance love. The kind that shows up once you've proven your worth. The kind that applauds only when others start clapping first. I wasn't bitter. Truly. That was the most shocking part. I wasn't out for revenge. I didn't want them to grovel. I just didn't need them anymore. And the space that used to ache for their approval, it was filled now. With purpose. With peace. With women who walked through my doors and left with straighter backs, deeper breaths, and a glimmer in their eyes that said, I remember who I am. One of them, a woman named Denise, 67, recently retired and feeling lost, hugged me after her second visit. You didn't just build a spa, she whispered. You built a life raft. I smiled. No, Denise. I just built the thing I wish had existed when I needed it. And that was the truth. This wasn't about proving anyone wrong anymore. It was about proving myself right. About creating a world where women like me, forgotten, dismissed, underestimated, could come home to themselves. So yes, I now make 10 times Greg's salary. And yes, I did it without a degree in business, without investors, without a man. But more than that, I did it without losing myself. And that's the real profit. I stood behind the curtain, fingers resting lightly on the edge of the podium, listening to the quiet murmur of the audience beyond. A small women's business conference, nothing flashy, nothing corporate. Just folding chairs, coffee in paper cups, and women like me. Women who had spent years putting themselves last, who had buried ambition beneath diapers and dinner plans, who had forgotten the sound of their own names spoken with pride. I was the final speaker. Our closing inspiration, the host had called me. That word still felt foreign on my skin. Inspiration. I used to think it belonged to others. Now I wore it like perfume, subtle but real. When I walked onto the stage, the room went still. Not because I was famous, but because they saw something in me they recognized. I wasn't polished. I wasn't rehearsed. I was real. I looked out at them, women with gray streaks and crow's feet, women with notebooks in their laps and hunger in their eyes, and I began. My name is Eleanor Wright. I'm 63, and 4 years ago I was invisible. Now, I run a spa that sees over 200 clients a month. I employ 12 women over 50. And yes, I make 10 times more than my ex-husband ever did. But that's not the point. The audience chuckled. I smiled. The point is, I did it because I stopped waiting. Waiting for permission. For a map. For someone to tell me I was still allowed to matter. I told them everything. Not the sanitized version. The real one. The dinner table comment. The eviction notice. The broken mirror and the cracked confidence. I told them how I didn't rise like a phoenix. I crawled. I stumbled. I doubted every step. But I moved. One choice at a time. And that's what changed everything. I watched tears shine in the eyes of strangers who suddenly didn't feel so strange anymore. I saw women squeeze each other's hands, nod silently, sit up straighter. That was the power, not my story, but what it unlocked in them. When the talk ended, they stood, applauded. Some cried, some didn't, but every single one of them saw me. And more importantly, I saw them. Afterward, a young woman came up, maybe late 30s. She looked at me with awe and asked, "What do you say to women who feel like it's too late?" I reached out, took her hand, and said the words I wish someone had told me years ago. It's never too late to become unforgettable. That night, back at the spa, I lit a single candle and walked barefoot through the quiet halls. I passed the steam room, the salt therapy lounge, the reading nook where 2 women had spent an hour earlier just resting. I stood in the center of it all and let the silence wrap around me. Not empty, not alone, whole. My phone buzzed, a message from David. "Saw your talk. I'm proud of you, Mom." I stared at the words. then turned the screen off. I didn't need his pride to validate mine, but it didn't hurt either. As I curled into bed, I whispered the sentence that started it all. What can a woman over 50 do? And this time, I answered it not with words, but with everything I had become. Watch me.